Attorney's back, please be seated. Thank you. All right, state and call your next witness, please.
State call Masita.
Good morning. Would you raise your hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning.
Morning.
Will you state your full name, please?
Lawrence Masita,
Spell your last name for us.
M-I-S-I-T-A,
And Mr. Masita, where are you employed?
Escambia County Sheriff's Office.
What do you do for the Sheriff's Office?
I work with the crime scene unit.
And would you have the same or similar duties as Christine Rollins and Lindsay Eliopoulos?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been with the crime scene unit?
8.5 years.
So let me take you to Monday, August 3rd, 2015.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you respond out to 4605 Deerfield Drive?
Yes, ma'am.
And approximately what time did you go out there?
8 a.m.
And when you got there, was the house secured?
Yes, ma'am, was.
And what does that mean?
There was a deputy stationed out front. The perimeter was surrounded with yellow crime scene tape, and the back door was also secured with red evidence tape is what we used.
Okay. And did you go inside the house through the back door?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you look in the den area?
Yes, I did.
And what, if anything, did you find on August 3rd, 2015?
At the back of the room, like along the wall, there was a wooden lamp, and I discovered there to be some broken shards of glass, the panes that were part of the lamp, along with a bulb. And at the base of it, I found a copper jacketing. It's a projectile copper jacketing, and along with when I moved a few of the items on the floor, I found a projectile as well.
Did you take pictures?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you also collect a black fabric case from the kitchen area?
Yes, I did.
And do you remember about how long you were at the house that day?
I guess say probably about 3 hours or so. I gotta check my notes.
Sure.
Yeah. No, it was quite a lot longer. 6 hours.
Okay.
6 hours.
And when you left the house, where did you go from Deerfield Drive?
Back to the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, crime scene lab.
Okay. And did you go through the black fabric case that you took from the kitchen counter?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And were photos taken of that case and its contents?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I make first witness?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Masita, I'm going to show you what have been previously marked as State's Exhibits 302 through 338. You'll just take a look at those and see if you recognize them. Do you recognize all of those?
Yes, ma'am.
And do they fairly and accurately depict the items and the locations that are in those exhibits?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, at this time, I'd move states 302 through 338 into evidence.
So admitted.
And permission to publish.
You may.
All right, Mr. Masita, this is State's Exhibit number 302. If you'll just describe for the jurors what this photo shows.
This is in the den, and again, along the back wall here, you can see the wooden lamp, and you can see like there's a bulb to the lamp. There's two bulbs there. One is broken, and then it's on top of appears to be like a chessboard, a wooden item.
And I know I'm asking you to kind of contort your body, but it's hard to hear.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Just get as close to that microphone as you can. Okay. This is State's Exhibit number 303. What does this show?
This is a closer up photo of that wooden lamp. You can see the broken shards of glass from the panes that were once inside of the lamp.
State's Exhibit 304.
Another close-up to show the broken glass at the base of the lamp.
305.
Once I removed the football, I was able to discover a projectile copper jacketing right there at the base of the lamp.
306.
Again, close-up of that copper jacketing.
307.
Same thing.
308.
When I moved it was like a 3-drawer piece of furniture. I moved that out of the way. Behind where the lamp was located, I was able to locate a projectile.
309.
This is a close-up of the projectile on the carpet floor,
310.
and this is the copper jacketing, the back end of the copper jacketing,
311.
and this is the side of the copper jacketing.
312.
Another side of the copper jacketing.
313.
This is the projectile as well.
All right. This is State's 314. What does this show?
This is the fabric case that was discovered on the countertop in the kitchen.
State's 315.
These are the contents of that fabric case.
316.
Same thing, the contents of the case, and this is the front side. The front side was face down on scene on the countertop.
And you removed all of these items from inside this case, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
State's 317.
This is a leather checkbook cover.
318.
This is checkbook for Richard T. Smith.
319.
A close-up of that checkbook.
320.
On the front side of it, which was face down on scene, when further inspecting it back at the lab, discovered there to be suspected blood on the front side, which was not visible while on scene.
321.
It's a close-up of that suspected blood,
322.
and the same thing.
Did you change the lighting or something? Or why is it darker in 321 than it is in 322?
Just using a flash.
Okay. State's 323.
More suspected blood on the front side.
State's 324.
Some more business cards that were in the contents of that fabric case.
325.
This is a banking card for Richard T. Smith that was, I believe, in the checkbook.
326.
And the back side of that card, which is signature of Richard T. Smith.
327.
Mail that was in the fabric case for Richard Smith.
328.
Same thing.
For what name?
Richard T. Smith.
329.
This is, I guess, is a summary, a bank summary.
Okay, and what are the names at the top?
Richard T. Smith and Voncile Smith.
330.
The Sprint bill, it has Richard T. Smith on it.
331.
It's a Pen Air, I guess, summary of the count for Richard T. Smith.
332.
This is a savings plan for Richard T. Smith that was, again, also in the fabric case.
333.
Gulf Power bill for Richard Arlene Smith.
334.
And Gulf Power bill for Richard Arlene Smith.
335.
They had some names on the Wells Fargo account for Richard T. Smith, John W. Smith, sorry, and Voncile Smith.
336.
And Pennsylvania News Journal, article mail for Richard A. Smith.
337.
I believe this is the Emerald Coast Utilities for Richard A. Smith.
And 338.
And Florida Blue Cross Blue Shield article mail for Richard T. Smith.
Did you see anything in that fabric case that had Donald Hartung's name on it?
No, ma'am.
Now, you swabbed some items and then collected items as well, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you do a presumptive blood test on the front of that black fabric case?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And what was your result?
It was positive.
And then did you swab that suspected area on the front of the case?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Did you also swab the checkbook that was inside the fabric case?
Yes, I did the leather covering.
Okay, the leather covering? And were those swabs sealed and turned into evidence?
Yes, ma'am, they were.
The actual case, the mail, the checkbook inside of the case, were those all collected and turned into evidence?
Yes, they were.
Okay, and we need to read those into the record. The Swiss Army fabric case itself, is that Sheriff's Office Exhibit number 145?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Are the mail pieces and the Kleenex pack from the fabric case Sheriff's Office Exhibit number 146?
Yes, ma'am.
The checkbook with miscellaneous papers, is that Sheriff's Office Exhibit 147?
Yes, ma'am.
The bank card that had Richard Smith's name on it, is that Sheriff's Office number 148?
Yes, ma'am.
The swabs that you took from the Swiss Army fabric case on the exterior, is that Sheriff's Office Exhibit 153?
Yes, ma'am.
The blood, the suspected blood on the front of that case that you swabbed, is that Sheriff's Office Exhibit 154?
Yes, ma'am.
And the swabs that you took, I think you said from the leather covering of the checkbook, are those Sheriff's Office Exhibit number 155?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did you also collect the bullet and the bullet jacket that you found in the den?
Yes, ma'am.
And were those items turned into evidence?
Yes, they were.
Let me show you what have been previously marked as States Exhibit 339 and 340. We'll just take a look at those and see if you recognize them.
Yes, ma'am.
339, the projectile, States Exhibit 339.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and is 340 the jacketing?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And are those items that you collected from the Deerfield Drive residence?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Okay. Judge, at this time I move States 339 and 340 in evidence.
No objection.
So admitted.
Now, while you were at the scene, was a casing, like a firearm casing, ever located?
No, ma'am, they weren't.
And do you know what a casing is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have familiarity with firearms?
Somewhat, yes.
Okay.
Good job.
What is a casing?
Casing is basically the housing of the contents and the parts of a full bullet or cartridge.
Okay. When a gun is fired, is that the part that kicks out?
Yes.
Now, later that same day, on Monday, August 3rd, did you respond somewhere else?
Yes, I believe it was 6730 Klondike.
Okay, and was that the residence of Mr. Donald Hartung?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you there for a search warrant?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were photos taken inside and outside of Mr. Hartung's home?
Yes, they were.
Okay, and can you describe just the basic layout of Mr. Hartung's home for the jury?
It was a smaller home, two bedrooms, one bathroom. When you enter through the front door, you enter right into the living room, and then off of the living room to the back side of it is the kitchen and dining area. To the left, I believe it's, you're not sure west or east, but off of the living room There's a small hallway that leads to the two bedrooms and one bathroom.
Okay. Mr. Masita, I'm going to show you what had been previously marked as states 341 through 359.
Yep.
If you'll just take a look through those. Do you recognize states 341 through 360?
Yes, ma'am.
And were those photos taken at Mr. Hartung's house on August 3rd, 2015?
Yes, ma'am, they were.
Do they fairly and accurately depict the items and locations that are in those exhibits?
Yes, they do.
Judge, at this time, I'd move states 341 through 360 into evidence
No objection, Your Honor.
So admitted.
and permission to publish.
May.
All right, Mr. Masita, I'm showing State's Exhibit number 341, if you will describe what this shows.
This is the front of the residence.
State's 342,
This is the back side of the residence.
343,
This is a view from the open front door leading into the living room.
344,
This is on a shelving unit directly across from the front door. There's a shelf you have a piece of paper with some numerics on it, ID for Mr. Hartung.
sorry, this is 345,
This is a close-up of those numbers.
346,
This is the living room area.
347,
Again, in a different angle of the living room area.
348,
This is the dining kitchen area. You can see there's a dog that was present.
349.
Another photo of the kitchen.
Was this a hammer up here?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
350,
Inside the garbage.
351,
This is of the two rooms that were present. This is the only designated bedroom that was there.
352,
This is the bathroom,
353,
and this is the other room that was present.
354,
It's a table in the corner of the room that had some various items on it, candles and figurines.
355.
Just the other side of that table with the figurines and
Can you
books.
speak up, please?
Oh, sorry. This is the other side of the table with candles and other figurines, books present.
Okay. And is that the table that they were just looking at on the left side of this picture?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Okay. This is 356.
This is the other angle of the corner of the room, and you can see.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Okay, and you can see the table from the previous picture. Another table with candles and a figurine and books on it present.
Okay. And do you know what these things are hanging on the wall?
A closer look, this one here it appeared to be some sort of necklace,
Okay.
and the one on here appeared to be consistent with a hair braid.
Okay. 357.
There was two area rugs in the center of the room, facing east and west, and then there you have a dresser with, again, on top you have candles and a couple figurines.
358.
This is in the one corner. You can see there's a Ouija board, a few books, candles, and a few figurines as well.
359.
You have the dresser, again, with the candles and figurines on top.
360.
This is in one of the drawers. You can see there's witchcraft books and Wicca books. And there's a spool of rope here.
Now, did you test areas of Mr. Hartung's home with Blue Star?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what is Blue Star?
Blue Star, it's a forensic aid that we use to test for the presumptive presence of suspected blood that you can't see to the naked eye.
And were there any areas in Mr. Hartung's home that, I guess, fluoresced with the Blue Star?
Yes, ma'am.
Where was that?
There is those small area rugs. There is a small area right beside, on the floor beside the area rugs. The top of the toilet seat, and there was two areas on the floor in the living room by the front door, and then there was and then Mr. Hartung's shoes as well.
And where were the shoes?
The shoes were taken from him.
Did you swab each of those areas that you just described for blood or DNA?
Other than the rugs and the shoes, the rest were swabbed for DNA.
Okay. Did you take the rugs and the shoes from the home and turn them into evidence?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Did you collect the hammer from the microwave as well?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Did you find any ammunition or firearms in Mr. Hartung's home?
Yes, there was in the TV stand shelf, there was a large box. There's a box of a large amount of 22 caliber ammunition. And then there was, in the one corner shelving unit, there was a mug with five shotgun shells.
Okay. No firearms, though?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Mr. Griffith?
Officer Masita, the first involvement you had with this case was when you went to the Deerfield Drive home, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
And what day was that?
I believe I went on the 31st, the first day that the incident was occurred. I went to aid.
And were you assisting Christine Rollins
Yes, and Lindsay Epilopoulos as well.
and Ms. Iliopoulos?
Yes.
So there were 3 crime scene techs there, is that right?
There could have been more present, but I helped them as they were the leads.
Okay. While you were there, did you observe anyone taking, dusting for fingerprints?
Yes, sir.
Who was that?
Well, I did myself. I believe the others did as well, but I did myself.
Okay. Did you dust any of the thermostats?
Thermostats, I did not know.
Did you adjust the temperature on any of the thermostats?
I didn't personally know.
When you arrived at the residence, what door did you go in?
The rear door.
And was there an officer there checking you in and out?
I don't recall. There was many officers there.
But did you have to check in with anybody, or did you just walk in?
I didn't make myself known that I'm here.
Okay. And when you walked in, was the back door open?
Yes, when I came.
It was propped open?
I can't recall if it was propped or not.
Now, in the bedroom of Richards,
Yes.
was that where you primarily did your crime scene investigative work, or were you all over the house?
I focused on the den on the 3rd of August. That's the day I focused on,
Okay.
personally.
And that's where we found the broken lamp.
Yes, sir.
And the den's also where you found the projectile and the casing,
Copper jacketing, yes.
the copper jacketing, excuse me. Explain how the copper jacketing works with the projectile.
The copper jacketing encases the projectile, and it's attached to the shell casing.
And when a bullet is expelled from the end of a firearm, does the jacketing go along with the projectile?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you have two elements that are expelled from the barrel of a firearm, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you never found the casing?
No, sir.
And where did you find the case with all the contents in? Was that in Richard's room?
No, it
Or
was
was that in the den also?
It was in the kitchen.
That was in the kitchen?
Yes, sir.
And where in the kitchen?
It was on the countertop, direct when you come in the back door, basically immediately when you walk into the kitchen.
Okay.
On the countertop by the sink.
The photographs I have seen of the kitchen show numerous items all over the countertops.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
And was it just among those items?
It was there's nothing on top of it or anything like that. But
Okay.
there was items, I guess, around it.
And you said that you found what you thought might be some blood on that case?
Yes, sir.
Did you use the blue star on that?
No, I did not.
What did you use?
It's a presumptive blood test with use of phenolphthalein.
Okay. And do you know whose blood that was?
No, I do not.
Do you know if it was human blood?
I do not know.
So you don't know if it was human blood or animal blood,
Personally, no, I don't know.
and you don't know whose blood.
No.
Was there any indication that anybody had taken any checks out of that checkbook, ripped them out or torn them out or anything like that?
I couldn't tell if there was recently done or anything like that.
Were all the letters that were in that case opened,
I don't believe so.
so they were all sealed?
I can't recall if they were all sealed or all sealed or all open.
So you don't have any knowledge as to whether Mr. Hartung, my client, ever saw any of that information?
I can't testify to whether he saw it or not.
Did you check those envelopes for fingerprints?
No, I was not directed to.
Did you check the contents of the envelopes for fingerprints?
I did not.
And when I say fingerprints, I'll also include DNA in that.
I did not. No.
So there is nothing to establish that Mr. Hartung ever read those letters, the contents of the letters.
I can't specify whether he did or not.
I said there's nothing to establish that he did.
Not that I'm aware of.
And the bank card, was that ever processed for fingerprints
I didn't know. I was
or
not.
DNA?
Not at this time. Not by me. No.
When you do these seizures of evidence, you get it, then you turn it into evidence, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you ever send a note or a letter to the investigators, hey, we think this is important, maybe you might want to look at this or run a DNA test or fingerprints on this?
So sometimes it has been done.
Did you do that in this case?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay.
I mean, my supervisor was aware of what was what was in the case.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to know if you had done that.
No.
Are you aware if anybody did that?
No, I'm not aware.
Other than seizing or taking the photographs of the broken lamp and seizing the projectile and the jacketing and this black notebook, did you seize any other evidence at the Deerfield Drive residence?
Yes, I believe I seized like a modem and a router as well.
Okay. And those were turned into evidence?
Yes, they were. Because I believe there's some other items if you want me to list them off.
Go ahead.
Okay. There's glad trash bags in a box from the laundry room. The Netgear wireless router, Cisco cable modem. There was a roll of paper towels from the kitchen, and there was a padlock from the back gate that I collected as well.
Where did you get the padlock? Was it on the back gate?
Yes.
Had it been forced open?
I can't recall at this time.
Did the back gate enclose that back door?
Enclose the back door.
Did you have to go through the back gate that had the padlock on it to get to the back door?
I don't know if there was any other avenues to get there or not.
Did you go through the gate to get to the back door?
I went through a gate, yes.
And was that where the padlock goes?
I can't recall. I was asked to turn it in.
Oh, okay.
Directly.
So you didn't collect it initially, or you did?
I didn't collect it from the gate itself, no.
Okay. After that, you went over to my client's residence on Klondike, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay, was he present when you arrived?
He was.
Was he cooperative with you?
I didn't have any contact with him that I can recall, but
Who else was there when you arrived?
there was several other investigators.
Do you recall who?
There was Michael Milstead, Sergeant Jason Barnes, Sergeant Bjornson, who was my direct supervisor. There's Michelle Wirt was an investigator as well. I can't recall the other ones. Matt Infinger was there as well.
Okay. And did they direct you on what items to seize, or did you do that on your own?
No, they directed me.
And who was directing you?
There was Matt Infinger, and then there was my Sergeant
Sergeant
Bjornson.
Bjornson?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was a collective understanding, but I didn't make any decisions of what was collected.
So you were acting at the direction of either Matt Infinger or Sergeant Bjornson?
Yes.
And on the hammer, did you do any testing on that to see if there was blood?
I did not at that time.
Did you determine whether on my client's shoes or on the toilet seat, in the area by the front door, on the area rugs, or otherwise on the floor, if any of the blood you found was human blood?
I'm not sure if it was or not.
Did you seize any clothing from my client's residence?
No, I don't recall.
Did you seize the drains?
I did not.
How about, did you look into the washing machines?
I did not, personally.
Did you look at his vehicle?
I wasn't directed to, no.
What I called the black notebook, was that a Swiss Army fabric zipper case? Is that what that was?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you get DNA swabs from the cables and the modem and the router?
I did, yes.
And from the, I guess there was a Netgear router and a Cisco modem?
Yes.
So you took DNA from that?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what the results of that DNA was?
No, sorry, I'm not aware of.
Were you directed to take those DNA swabs, or did you do those on your own?
I believe I was directed, but they wanted in process, so I processed them.
Just one moment. Does it fluoresce if it's not blood, or does it have to be blood to fluoresce?
It can it can fluoresce for other items as well.
And what would those items be?
There's The Blue Star can fluoresce for different types of actually vegetables or cleaning products, stuff like that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
You redirect.
Mr. Masita, Mr. Griffith said that there was nothing to establish that Donald Hartung read the mail in that black case, correct?
Yes, you do.
You don't know
I
who
do.
read what, do you?
I do not.
Okay. And when you're collecting trash bags, paper towels from a scene, do you have any idea at that point if it's going to be relevant or not?
No, not all the time.
Okay, so are you just trying to take what you can in case it may be important?
Yes.
And Mr. Griffith asked you if you collected any clothing, any drains from the washing machines and such from Mr. Hartung's house. Do you remember that line of questioning?
Yes.
This search warrant was August 3rd of 2015, correct?
Yes.
This was 3 days after the bodies were found.
Yes.
Thank you.
You can step down, sir.
Thank you.
State, call your next witness, please.
Rachel Smith.
Good morning. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Will you state your name, please?
Rachel Smith.
Ms. Smith, where are you employed?
I'm employed with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement at the Pensacola Regional Operations Center.
And what do you do for FDLE?
I'm a senior crime laboratory analyst in the Latent Print section
And how long have you been a latent print examiner?
for over 13 years.
And can you tell the jurors your education and training?
I earned a bachelor's degree in forensic science from the University of Central Florida. I've completed the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Crime Laboratory Analyst Training Program, and I've also attended various external training courses throughout my career.
Have you identified a person by comparing known inked fingerprints to latent fingerprints?
Yes.
And approximately how many times?
Identifications probably in the thousands, the low thousands.
Okay. Have you testified in court as an expert before in your field?
Yes.
Approximately how many times?
Over 25.
What is a latent print?
If you look at the palm of your hand, you may notice there's actually raised areas of skin. This is known as friction-rich skin. And it's only found on the undersides of the hands and the undersides of the feet. An impression of this friction-rich skin may be left behind on an object when it is touched through the transfer of a medium, also known as latent print residue. This medium can be made up of perspiration, oil, makeup, paint, basically any substance that can be on the surface of the friction-rich skin or on the surface of the object and then transfer to one or the other when you touch it. Latent means hidden or unseen, and the majority of latent prints need some type of development technique to make them visible.
And what is a known or an inked fingerprint?
A known or inked fingerprint, a known standard is a controlled recording of the friction-rich skin that is normally done with black ink on a white card or through digital capture.
Now, how are fingerprints compared and identifications made?
I first look at the latent print. I look at all of the information that's present. The ridge flow, the ridges may come in on one side and flow out the other. They may arch up. They may form a pattern. So I look at the ridge flow of the latent print. I look at the ridge characteristics. The ridges some examples of ridge characteristics would be if a ridge runs and ends abruptly, which is known as a ridge ending, or sometimes the ridges will run and split into two separate ridges, which is known as a bifurcation. So I look at these ridge characteristics and their relationship to one another, as well as their positioning in the latent print itself. I also look for any creases, any scars, any pores, any information that's present in that latent print. I observe that. I then look at the known standards, and I conduct a side-by-side comparison of the latent print to the known standards, and I look at all of the information that I observed in the latent print. I look for similar information in the known standard. If the information in the latent print and the known standard is found to be in agreement, then I could reach a conclusion of identification.
Are fingerprints specific to each individual?
Yes, they are.
And based on your training, study, and your experience, have you ever seen two people with the same fingerprints?
I have not.
Now, there's been testimony by a number of crime scene technicians in this case that have processed hangers, plastic bags, different areas of a crime scene, a trash can, contents of a trash can, and their results were negative. So is it possible to touch something and not leave a fingerprint?
It is.
Okay, and can you describe some of those factors that come into play?
There are multiple reasons. One big one would be if there was something impeding the ability to leave that print. So if there was a covering on the surface of the frictionless skin, a glove or a piece of cloth, that type of thing, you would not be able to leave the print behind. The residue that I mentioned, that medium that has to be there to transfer. So if you wash your hands and your hands are very dry and clean, that residue may not be present to transfer to the surface. So a latent print may not be left behind. The surface itself also can play into, come into play. If the surface is extremely textured, it is not a good surface to leave a latent print on, for instance, like a brick or an extremely textured piece of plastic. Also, fabric is not a good surface to leave a latent print on as well. Then there's also anything that's handled excessively, for instance, like a doorknob. If something that there's movement in the handling, then the movement is causing you may leave a print, but then you immediately wipe it away because you're leaving more smudges than a latent print.
Were you provided with evidence in State of Florida versus Donald Wayne Hartung?
I was.
And did you receive 2 pieces of a sink handle?
May I refer to my notes?
Please.
Yes, I did.
All right, and what did you do with the sink handle?
I visually examined the 2 pieces, and then I applied different development techniques to them in order to visualize any prints that may be present.
Okay, and what was your finding as to the 2 pieces of sink handle?
There were no latent prints of value for comparison.
Did you also receive a green-colored wallet and a piece of floor trim?
Yes, I received a green and cream-colored wallet, 1 quarter and 4 pennies, and a piece of floor trim.
Okay, and what did you do with the wallet and the floor trim?
Again, I visually examined those items, and then I applied the various development techniques to attempt to visualize any latent prints that may have been present.
And what was your finding?
No latent prints of value for comparison were noted or developed.
Did you receive a small Kleenex packet and a number of pieces of mail?
Yes, I received a Kleenex package with tissues and 67 items of mail.
Okay, and what did you do with each of those items?
Again, I visually examined each item and then applied development techniques to develop any latent prints that may have been present.
And what was your finding?
There were no latent prints of value for comparison on those items.
Did you receive an envelope, a check number 4006, and a deposit slip?
Yes,
Okay, and what was your, what did you do with those items?
I visually examined them and I used multiple development techniques to develop any latent prints that may have been present.
Okay, and what was your finding as to those items?
There were latent prints of value for comparison on the envelope, the check number 4006, and the deposit slip.
All right. Now, I'm looking at your report dated June 6th of 2017. Did you receive known fingerprints of Donald Wayne Hartung Sr.?
Yes, I did.
And what was your finding as to Donald Hartung's prints with the latent prints on the envelope, check number 4006, and the deposit slip?
I compared Donald Wayne Hartung Sr.'s prints to the 2 fingerprints and 3 latent impressions from the envelope, check number 4006, and deposit slip, and the results were inconclusive due to insufficient standards. What this means is that the standards that were provided were poor quality and did not contain the necessary information for me to reach a conclusive result for that comparison.
All right. Did you receive known fingerprints for Richard Smith?
Yes, I did.
And what was your finding as to Richard Smith's prints with the latents on the envelope, check number 4006, and the deposit slip?
1 latent fingerprint that was developed on the envelope was identified to the fingerprint standards of Richard Smith. The remaining latent fingerprint and 3 latent impressions from the envelope, check number 4006, and deposit slip were compared with the finger and palm print standards of Richard Smith, and the results were also inconclusive due to insufficient standards.
Now, do you decide which items of evidence to examine for fingerprints, or does someone else decide that for you?
They are submitted to the laboratory with the assignment already chosen.
Okay. So you don't go to the sheriff's office and pick and choose which items to look at?
No.
Thank you, ma'am. Those are all my questions.
So, Ms. Smith, what you're telling us is that you couldn't compare anything to Mr. Hartung, is that correct?
I compared them, but the results were inconclusive.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any redirect?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. You can step down. All right, members of the jury, we're going to take a short break at this time. So I'm going to ask you to retire to the jury room. We'll be back with you shortly. Please be seated. Ms. Jensen, you wanted to have whatever discussion regarding DHS employees?
Yes, Judge, so the state's next witness will be David Flatt, and then after that would be Tammy Duncan, followed by Mr. Palomino. Mr. Griffith is going to be objecting as he's done with the federal employees, so I didn't want it to be done with the jury present.
We didn't have an objection per se. It was a line of questioning regarding security status and such that y'all reached by, well, I ruled were not relevant. But Mr. Griffith, any issues with these?
I don't know what the issues may be until they testify, Your Honor, very honestly.
Any issues that you know of at this time?
No, they ask them what they did, what they seized, that sort of thing, but I think that's pretty obvious from the testimony of the state that it's already been elicited from the state witnesses, who was there and what they took. Then we didn't get the names of who two investigators were from DHS, but if they took certain items, that's where we're going.
Okay.
Judge, I think the issue is that, well, Mr. Griffith told the state that he was going to try and go into some areas with Kevin Palomino, who is a federal protective service agent out of Houston. And so that's the state's concern. They conducted an investigation because Richard was a federal employee. And so they are going to basically testify that based on their investigation, Richard's job has nothing to do with his death. So I don't know that Mr. Griffith was satisfied at leaving it at that.
I don't know that I am.
Well, where are you concerned that they could go?
Well, that Mr. Griffith is going to start going into the duties of Richard Smith, the details of the investigation, and they have been instructed that they are, again, to speak very generically about Richard's job, that he's a computer specialist, the same thing that all of the witnesses have testified to.
Well, I'm just thinking theoretically, they could speak about some generic things that they checked into.
Right.
But it's hard for me. Are we going to have to proffer?
I don't know, Judge, it's up to Mr. Griffith.
Well, I'll tell you what.
If I think we need to proper, Judge, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Or if I ask a question and Ms. Jensen objects, then we can, I don't think I'm going to get in, I wouldn't think I'm going to get into anything that you've already prohibited me from delving into.
He doesn't think he would.
What we're going to do, what is Mr. Flatt? What is his position?
David Flatt was a coworker of Richard.
Okay. What is Ms. Duncan?
Coworker of Richard.
And Mr. Jacoby?
He's the agent that was assigned to investigate the death of Richard from the federal side.
And Mr. Palomino?
Same.
So is your concern primarily with those two?
Well, my concern is with all of them,
Well,
with Mr. Griffith, but
The first two
mostly-
weren't part of the investigation per se.
Correct.
So they would be kind of like
Mr.
the
McCord.
prior. The prior.
Mr. McCord, correct.
So,
I know what your ruling was already on that, and I assumed that it would be the same for those two, that although I may want to get into the location of where they work on the base, and more specifics as to the jobs you have already prohibited me from doing by your rule.
With the prior witness, unless you came up with some reason otherwise.
Just what I've already enunciated, Judge.
Okay. All right, so,
So I don't intend to purposely violate your rule.
all right, well, particularly after Mr. Palomino has given direct, I imagine we're gonna have lunch break by then anyway. We'll take a break and see where everybody's at for cross.
Great.
Okay, ready for the jury?
Sure.
That's fine, Judge.
Okay, bring them in, please.